Dear students, this is Ruchita Sharma. Today's lesson is lesson 4 of your book 1, Hornbill. It is titled Landscape of the Soul. The author is Nathalie Trouveroy. Students, don't you find the title Landscape of the Soul quite unusual? The soul mentioned here is our spirit, Antar Atma. The author seems to express that among body, mind and soul, soul reigns supreme. A person who has learnt to command himself or herself, or in other words, a person who has introspected himself or herself, or a person who has realized that a human being is more than this body and mind, is truly a conqueror. Dear students, do you know painting and drawing? Have you ever painted landscapes like the beauty of nature, mountains and rivers, plains and plateaus, deserts and forests? I'm sure you certainly must have. Do you know that this type of art, which represents things as you see them, is realistic art? People in the West and the European countries are perfect artists of this kind of art. But students, do you know that there is an art which is not what it looks like? This art has some hidden meaning. This art wants you to see a secret that the painter has realized. The painter wants to share this secret with the onlooker through his painting. This art is different from the figurative painting of European countries. This type of art belongs to a country of a very ancient civilization. This art is in the form of a rolled scroll also. Students, can you guess the name of the country to which this spiritual landscape painting belongs to? This genre or type of art belongs to China. So students, in this lesson we shall read some very wonderful and mysterious aspects of painting in different parts of the world, especially China. For your convenience and for the better understanding of this lesson, we have divided the chapter into 3 parts. Today, we shall read part 1, which runs from the phrase "a wonderful old tale" on page 34 to the phrase "material appearance" on page 35. So listen to part 1. A wonderful old tale is told about the painter Wu Daozi, who lived in the 8th century. His last painting was a landscape commissioned by the Tang Emperor Xuanzong to decorate a palace wall. The master had hidden his work behind a screen, so only the emperor would see it. For a long while the emperor admired the wonderful scene, discovering forests, high mountains, waterfalls, clouds floating in an immense sky, men on hilly paths, birds in flight. "Look, sire," said the painter, "in this cave at the foot of the mountain dwells a spirit." The painter clapped his hands, and the entrance to the cave opened. The inside is splendid, beyond anything words can convey. Please let me show your majesty the way. The painter entered the cave, but the entrance closed behind him, and before the astonished emperor could move or utter a word, the painting had vanished from the wall. Not a trace of Wu Daozi's brush was left, and the artist was never seen again in this world. So students, in this passage we read about a great painter of China whose name was Wu Daozi. He painted a beautiful landscape painting for his king. The painting was painted in great detail. It showed forests, high peaks, waterfalls, clouds, vast sky, men walking on hilly paths, flying birds, and so on. Then the painter guided the king's eyes to see a cave in the painting. The painter told the king that a spirit lived in that cave. Then the painter clapped and the gate to the cave opened. The painter said that the inside of the cave was even more wonderful. He asked the king to enter the cave with him. But as soon as the painter entered the cave, the gate closed. The emperor was left behind, very surprised. Soon the painting also disappeared from the wall. Students, now we shall read the next passages of part 1 of the lesson Landscape of the Soul. So listen. Such stories played an important part in China's classical education. The books of Confucius and Zhuangzi are full of them. They helped the master to guide his disciple in the right direction. Beyond the anecdote, they are deeply revealing of the spirit in which art was considered. Contrast this story or another famous one about a painter who wouldn't draw the eye of a dragon he had painted for fear it would fly out of the painting, with an old story from my native Flanders that I find most representative of Western painting. So students, we see how this passage wants to tell us the importance of spiritual education in traditional teaching methods in China. The Chinese art is totally in contrast to European art. The author of this lesson gives us the example of realism in art when she tells us of a dragon which the painter painted in her native place called Flanders. The painter painted the dragon with so much perfection that he was fearful that if he painted the dragon's eye, it might jump out of the canvas. Come, students, now let's read the last passage for today. Listen. In 15th century Antwerp, a master blacksmith called Quentin Metzes fell in love with a painter's daughter. The father would not accept a son-in-law in such a profession, so Quentin sneaked into the painter's studio and painted a fly on his latest panel with such delicate realism that the painter tried to swat it away before he realized what had happened. Quentin was immediately admitted as an apprentice into his studio. He married his beloved and went on to become one of the most famous painters of his age. These two stories illustrate what each form of art is trying to achieve: a perfect, illusionistic likeness in Europe, the essence of inner life and spirit in Asia. In the Chinese story, the emperor commissions a painting and appreciates its outer appearance, but the artist reveals to him the true meaning of his work. The emperor may rule over the territory he has conquered, but only the artist knows the way within. Let me show the way, the Tao, a word that means both the path or the method, and the mysterious works of the universe. The painting is gone, but the artist has reached his goal beyond any material appearance. So, students, after reading this part 1 of the lesson Landscape of the Soul, we find that the author is trying to make us understand her point by giving us examples from both China and Europe. This way, we come to know the difference between the paintings in China and Europe. In Chinese landscape painting, painters are not bothered about the details and exact appearance of the object. Here, feelings and emotions, which are spiritual in nature, are important. In European painting, the painter is bent on giving to the viewer the actual view of the object. The European painting has no such spiritual, mystical, or hidden meaning for the viewer to find out. Students, that is all for today. Keep learning and revising. God bless.